Imagine being forced into work at the age of 6, surrounded by a hazardous environment with chemicals, loud noises, and working long hours. Imagine being brutally punished for not working fast enough. For hundreds of millions of children all over the world, this situation is all too familiar. Through my audience analysis and extensive research, I have learned numerous things about child labor. And today, I'm here to persuade you all to agree that child labor should be eliminated in the United States. And hopefully at the end of the speech, you all realize this major issue needs to be solved once and for all. I'm going to be talking to you about the problems that child labor creates, the many causes for this issue, and what solutions you can take to eliminate this child labor. So let's first start off with the problems that this issue creates. One of the major problems of child labor is that it greatly affects the lives of the children. Children are being exploited, overworked, put in hazardous situations, and are not getting good enough education. Kaushik Basu, Senior Vice President of the World Bank, stated that according to the Bureau of Statistics of the International Labor Organization, more than 120 million children are being forced into full-time paid work, and they're the ages of 5 to 14. And now keep in mind, paid work does not mean they're getting minimum wage. These children are getting paid next to nothing for working long, extensive hours. Another point is that it's illegal and not morally right. Child labor was imminent in the United States in the mid-19th century, and now it's not. Thankfully to the government and OSHA, there are laws that put into place to ensure that minors aren't being exploited in the workforce. But there still are big companies in the United States that are finding ways around these laws and still getting involved in child labor. Big companies like Apple, H&M, Hershey's, Nike, and many more have all been accused of using child labor. So now that we've talked about the problems, let's talk about the causes. One major cause of child labor is poverty and a lack of education. Especially in developing countries, families in low-paying jobs are forced to have their young children work as well in order for the family to survive. And this is all a vicious cycle. Children that are forced into child labor when they are younger miss out on an education and continue to have low-paying jobs throughout their life. And when they finally have a family, they're going to have their children work as well. Another point is that existing laws aren't working as well as they should. Julia E. Johnson, journalist of Foreign Affairs, stated that the removal of the last federal child labor law has allowed for a larger employment of children, and laws are weakened by numerous exemptions and work permits. This can explain why so many big companies are able to still get involved in child labor. Another major cause is a lack of awareness. Many of you in this classroom didn't even know what big companies were involved in child labor and didn't know the detrimental effects that it has on the children. So you would be surprised to know that child labor often includes children being enslaved, separated from their families, put in hazardous situations where they're exposed to illnesses and are often left to fend for themselves on the streets. So now it's time to talk about the most important part, the solutions. Free education needs to be available to all children, especially in developing countries. A way that you can do this is by donating to organizations like Free the Children. Free the Children is an organization that is set to remove the barriers to education and to empower communities to break the cycle of poverty. There also needs to be more laws and regulations on child labor. Child labor monitoring involves identification, referral, protection, and prevention of child laborers, and aims to cover all children living in a given geographical area. If we can increase the monitoring of companies in the United States, we can further detect child labor and prevent it for the future. And then there's the most important step you can take of all, which is creating awareness. Since many of you in this classroom weren't even aware of what exactly child labor was, it's likely that a lot of other people didn't know either. So what you can do is tell your community, involve your friends and your family, figure out which companies are still using child labor and boycott against them and stop buying things from them. The more supporters you get, the more likely it is that we can stop child labor. So I've told you about the problems, the causes, and the solutions for child labor. It's important that we all understand how detrimental child labor can be on a child's life. Imagine if it were you who had to miss out on an education and go to work and risk your health and safety every single day. Many of you in this classroom got your first job at around the age of 17. So this is something that you can hardly comprehend. It's important. Imagine if it were, if you would want to be in this situation, why should hundreds of millions of children have to go through this? It's time that we call for a change and make a stand against child labor.